Is that the feeling we get watching them on the TV screen?
I understand it from a player's perspective. Like, when you're playing those teams that are at the top of your division, there's just a little bit more into those games. You don't necessarily get caught up in what the fans say and the traditional rivalry as much. So when you're playing the best teams, that's when you feel it. You go out there and you kind of have that same sense of, yeah, this is our. So when I was with the Mets, at times it was the Nationals, at times it was the Phillies, at times it was the Braves. It just kind of depended who was at the top, who you were battling with for first place or to, get it to the top of that division. It wasn't necessarily the traditional rivalry.
Do you agree with that?
Are there enough players on both teams that have enough tenure in both cities to actually form a rivalry?
Oh, that's a really good point.
Because back in the day when you thought about Yankees, Red Sox, you were used to seeing the same guys play against the same guys year over year over year, and I just don't think they have that. There's a little bit more bad blood between Toronto and New York. There's a little bit more bad blood between Tampa and New York.
Right.
But, when you go back to the day of Pedro saying, I'm going to hit you in your bean, basically what he was saying, there was familiarity between those two teams, and they generally didn't like each other. So I don't see these two teams having enough people playing for each team.
No, I
to
see
build
his
up
point.
that dislike. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. Whitlock and Cole, that is your pitching matchup for Game 1 of this weekend set. In our last segment, JP Morosi told you about what's going on with Yordan Alvarez. Well, the news is not great on Lance McCullers Jr. either. We have not seen McCullers Jr. this season because he's been rehabbing from an injury sustained in spring training. Listen to General Manager Dana Brown about the latest on Lance McCullers Jr. Check this out.
He was up to 35 pitches, up to 93 off the mound, experienced the setback, and so he was continuing to rehab. And so, he still felt the discomfort. And so at this point, he's going to go get an MRI tomorrow to get a little bit more detail. And after the MRI, we're going to have an update early next week as to, what's going on.
Well, that doesn't sound great. Considering
Robert, I'm not chuckling at the situation. It's your fandom.
It's his body language.
Luis Garcia is gone for the rest of the season. Jose Urquidy, he is coming back.
Right.
So you're down 2. They were hopeful that Lance McCullers Jr. would come back sometime soon, but that does not sound great, Phil.
It doesn't. And look, in today's game that we're watching, right? When I showed Clayton Kershaw earlier, that's not a max effort dude. That's a dude that's been around, understands what's going on. Almost everybody else in this game is, I'm going to grip it and rip it and throw it as hard as I can.
Yeah.
And I think Lance has always fallen in that category as well, including the breaking ball.
He throws a lot of spin.
And as hard as he can possibly do it. So, no, it's not a good sound right there. And I wonder if the future, if we're ever going to trend back into the idea of saying, okay, maybe a little less is more in certain times. Instead of me throwing harder, can I take a little bit off, hit my spots, and still pitch?
Anthony, he did have Tommy John surgery, I believe, in 2020, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah.
So,
and he had some issues last year.
That's right.
It took him a while to get into the season last year, so this is one of those things that seems like it's kind of a repetitive problem, which is unfortunate. You hate to see these injury-type things derail careers like this. I mean, we just saw it with a couple days ago with Jacob deGrom and the fact that he's going to be out for a really long time now. It's not things you like to see when you're a fan of the game, period.
Yeah, they need a starter, they need a bat, and I don't know if they have the prospect capital to get all that done.
Oh, gosh, you were just in a mood.
McCullers had his previous Tommy John surgery in 2019, so we'll have to see what happens.
And then Dana Brown acknowledged this development could play into their approach at the deadline. Make it 200 career home runs for José Ramírez, 3 on Thursday. He's fascinating, Bill. I interviewed him last postseason. He took a team-friendly deal, and I asked him about it. He said, my family was raised here. How much money do I need? And it was the most refreshing conversation I think I've ever had with an athlete. He's different. He's a special guy.
You know what? Let's go back to José Ramírez. When you watch him play, I don't think anything jumps off out at you, right? You see this guy, okay, I don't know. Can he play a little bit? Yeah, he can play a little bit. But I guarantee if you go back and look at the last 4 or 5 years of numbers, he's sitting in the top 3 or 4 of the MVP.
Yep.
More than you think.
Every year. Every year.
Right. And I think the accumulative stats that he's had over 3-4 years, you might throw Trout, you might throw Judge, you might throw Ohtani in there, but you're throwing those guys in there anyway. You wouldn't think by checking this dude out when he walks out on the field that he's in that category.
He is.
But he's every bit in that category for Cleveland.
Yeah, I can remember in 2016, I got over to Cleveland and I was in spring training with them, and I remember a couple of people talking about José Ramírez. Hey, watch out for this kid. He's going to be really good. He's 5'9". He doesn't look like a tremendous athlete. He runs great. He's flexible. He can play position. He hits for power. And he does it from both sides of the plate. It's really impressive to see him and watch him go about his business. The success he's had, based on what I heard then, does not surprise me at all.
You know, there are a lot of teams that get talked about in the National League West, and rightly so. The Dodgers, the Diamondbacks have been good. Padres, in some circles, disappointing. But don't sleep on the San Francisco Giants. They're just a game and a half. They're just a half game back of the National League wild card chase, as they are coming off a sweep of the Rockies. They host the Cubs this weekend, and yeah, I mean they're interesting, Anthony. I mean,
yeah,
you know,
they're getting some performance from their outfielders, whether it's Conforto. Slater just came back a little bit ago. He's been playing well. Their pitching staff has been much better of late. DeSclafani's been great all year. This team, I thought they were like high-end a 500 team. The way they're playing right now, it seems like they could be able to do better than that.
Yeah, I mean the firepower is certainly you don't match up their firepower when you say, okay, the Padres, and they've been a big disappointment. The Dodgers, they do have some guys that can pitch.
Yeah.
And they got a big ballpark, and if you got guys that can throw the baseball right here and you're used to playing some one-run games and you can win them, you got a chance.
And Haniger hasn't even gotten going yet. If that guy gets going, this offense can really take off.